We want to welcome our viewers from Point Park University and all around the world. I'm Nick Marrero alongside Kimberly Keagy.
In congressional news, Republicans.
We begin tonight celebrating Martin Luther King Jr. Day. In Pittsburgh news, Pittsburgh Foundation files friend of court brief in gerrymandering case. On Wednesday, the state Supreme Court will hear arguments on where Pennsylvania's politicians have drawn legislative district maps so favorable to themselves that they violate the rights of voters, calling the state's congressional districts, quote, a draconian infringement on the constitutional rights of Pennsylvania citizens, end quote. The foundation filed a friend of the court brief urging the justices to, quote, a reasoned and fair standard that will eliminate unconstitutional partisan gerrymandering, end quote. CEO Maxwell King told the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette that it, quote, it's all part of our concern about the strength of the civic fabric. More and more voters feel as if they don't matter, they don't have a role, and I can't think of anything more threatening to the civic strength of the community than that, end quote. Mr. King says the foundation is acting now because they feel gerrymandering in Pennsylvania is a critical stage. Mr. King hopes that the foundation would influence judges. He also has a larger audience in mind. He hopes that it will more importantly influence the public about how critical an issue gerrymandering is.
The United Student Government welcomed the Associate Vice President of the IT Department, Dr. Tom Wilson, to its first meeting of the semester. Wilson addressed the legislative body, asking for feedback on current IT initiatives and any other ideas senators wanted to bring to his attention. According to the Globe, COPA Senator Megan Ortego asked Wilson about frequent requests to change passwords for school-related databases without any prior warning. Wilson said that he would look into offering a warning system so students could better understand when passwords need to be changed. USG is also trying to work with the IT department to install a printer in the Boulevard apartments and also connect the black and white printer in the Thayer Hall Computer Lab to the computers. The Globe also reports that Justin Stockless, the newly appointed treasurer, announced that the budget allocation meeting for the first half of the spring semester is currently scheduled for January 19th.
Troops allied with President Bashar al-Assad are determined to, quote, end the presence of the U.S., end quote, in Syria's state-run news agency SANA said on Monday, citing an official at the regime's foreign ministry. The official told SANA that the Assad regime, Syrian Arab army, would thwart conspiracy, end the presence of the U.S. and its agents and tools in Syria, establish full control over the entire Syrian territory, and preserve the country's sovereignty. The U.S. maintains some 2,000 troops in Syria and has said its forces will continue to back local anti-ISIS forces there until the extremist group is defeated and the area is stabilized. The statement came from Syria after the U.S.-led coalition fighting ISIS announced plans on Sunday to boost border security in the region, a move Syrian and Turkish officials said would destabilize the region. A spokesman for the U.S.-led coalition, Army Colonel Ryan Dillon, quote, the coalition is working jointly with the Syrian Democratic Forces to establish and train the new Syrian Border Security Force, BSF. Currently, there are approximately 230 individuals training in the BSF's inaugural class with the goal of a final force size of approximately 30,000, end quote. Dillon also told CNN that the coalition remains focused on supporting the Syrian Democratic Forces in defeating the remaining ISIS pockets in eastern Syria.
Outgoing New Jersey Governor Christie will be replaced by Democrat Phil Murphy on Tuesday, January 16th. Murphy is a former executive at Goldman Sachs and ambassador to Germany in the Obama administration. Politico is reporting that this is a major shakeup for New Jersey as they transition from, quote, one of their most conservative governors ever to a man who's all but pledged to be its most liberal one, end quote. We'll be going on a short break, so stay tuned.
What would you do to create something that could survive 1,000 years? You'd start with a formula, head to the lab, and forge it with fire. Just imagine everything it could do. It could leak pollutants into the soil and water, or it could conserve energy, cut CO2 emissions, and reduce raw material. Recycling is more than cutting waste. Recycling is about the legacy you want to leave. Why on earth would you want to do anything else? Recycle. Don't throw away our chance at survival.
Good evening and welcome to Newsnight. I'm Josh Troop alongside Jess Paterchak. Tonight we begin with
The mayor is continuing to deal with the challenges the city is facing.
But tomorrow we have just a little bit of cloudiness. We have
off throughout the day with some strong wind gusts. That's going to continue tomorrow. 20
Teams have already started talking to free agents. Saturday is partly cloudy, but 70 degrees? Where is the pool at? I mean, come on.
You might have already burned your bracket, ripped it up.
I am Royce Jones.
And I'm Casey Houlihan.
Thank you so much for joining us this evening. That's your news tonight for today.
UView Television is live here at the Center for Media Innovation with a very exclusive interview with Point Park's Black Diamond, our school mascot. We're taking questions on our social media at UView Television.
Our first question came in from @PointParkU Black Diamond. They want to know, what is one thing you love about Point Park?
UView.
I knew it.
UView's the best.
It is. All right, Alex, you want to read our next question?
Okay, we have another question from Point Park Cab. They're asking, when is the next time you're going to make a surprise appearance at their next event?
He's being coy. Looks like we're going to have to show up.
Yeah,
to
I
the
guess
event
we'll have to
now.
see.
All right, that's all we have for right now, but you can submit your own questions at UView Television, and we might read one of yours after the break.
Welcome back to On Point with Politics. Former White House chief strategist and ex-Trump campaign manager Steve Bannon will testify before the House Intelligence Committee Tuesday as part of its Russia probe and what will be his first appearance on Capitol Hill since the Michael Wolff book firestorm. Bannon, who stepped down as executive chairman of Breitbart News last week following a fallout with the president over Wolff's anti-Trump book, Fire and Fury Inside the Trump White House, will be interviewed behind closed doors by congressional investigators probing Russian meddling and potential collusion with Trump campaign associates during the 2016 presidential election. According to a Fox News, a source close to the committee told Fox News that Bannon would likely be questioned over information in Wolff's book. President Trump told his attorneys to demand that the publisher halt the book publication where Bannon was a dominant figure in the novel. This request was rejected. The lawyers also sent a cease and desist notice to Bannon, arguing he violated a non-disclosure agreement signed during the campaign by disclosing confidential information and speaking to the media about the campaign and disparaging members of the Trump family. Trump said, quote, "Steve Bannon has nothing to do with me or the presidency when he was fired. He not only lost his job, he lost his mind," end quote.
Last week, a bipartisan group of senators announced that they had reached an agreement on several immigration issues, including border security and DACA, the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals program. NBC News reports that both the White House and Republican lawmakers were not part of the negotiations, insisting that there was no deal made. In other news, Republican Senator Jeff Flake, a member of the bipartisan group, is expected to denounce President Trump's attacks on the news media as Stalinist, telling reporters, quote, "When a figure in power reflexively calls any press that doesn't suit him fake news, it is that person who should be the figure of suspicion, not the press." Senator Flake previously announced last year that he will not be seeking a second term in the Senate this November.
Nick, a lot is going on around the country this week. Now we'll check in with our reporter, Cole D'Alejandro.
Thank you, Nick. As far as Pennsylvania news this week, President Donald Trump will be making appearances in western Pennsylvania next week. According to a report by Politico, members of the White House have been closely monitoring Republican candidate Rick Saccone's progress during the race, with White House political director Bill Steppen recently giving warning to Saccone regarding insufficient funds raised by the campaign. This amount of interest in a Republican candidate's race in an area that voted Republican the previous presidential election comes shortly after the Republicans lost the Alabama election, resulting in a loss of GOP seats, and is far from usual. Trump will be visiting a manufacturing plant located outside of Pittsburgh and is expected to use the appearance to discuss the tax reform plan passed last month. In other state news, Governor Tom Wolf recently removed state police protection program from Lieutenant Governor Mike Stack and his wife last April, and Pennsylvania GOP Chairman Val DeGiorgio is determined to find out why. According to PennLive.com, DeGiorgio filed an appeal at the state's office with open records to counter Governor Wolf's denial of a rights to know request recently. The file DeGiorgio is hoping to release to the public is the reports of an investigation led by Inspector General Bruce Beamer, prompted by complaints of staff mainstream against Stack and his wife. DeGiorgio has been quoted as saying, quote, "When allegations come out that the lieutenant governor and his wife were abusing staff and potentially misusing state funds, I think people have the right to know. Stack and his wife have been reported to verbally abuse staff at the lieutenant governor's Fort Indiantown Gap residency provided by the state, as well as using their vehicle sirens for non-emergency situations." With On Point with Politics, I'm Cole DiAlessandro. Back to Nick and Kimberly at the desk.
Well, that's all we have for you this week. I'm Kimberly Keagy, joined by Nick Tomarello.
Make sure to return next week and stay informed with what is going on politically.
Hope you have a great rest of your week, and we hope that you stay on point with your politics. Good night.